Alright guys, so we're going to work on our second acrylic painting. So first step was just to paint the background like the tonal colors. So that's basically like I created like a bluish, it's kind of got like a little bit of blue and black in the background for the color, and you needed to let that dry. So hopefully you've done that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to sketch out the objects. So again, I'm going to sketch out now. This is going to be fun to see. A little bit trickier. Sketch out that orange, and I'm going to also add in that shadow. That's at as well. Alright, so from there, now that that's done, what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be working on it sideways just as a heads up so that way you can see more of that, is I'm going to now kind of apply the underpainting. So with this, I'm getting out my colors. So I've squeezed a little bit of some burnt sienna and some crimson. I'm going to squeeze out some yellow. I like to make my colors. I do not typically like to have, I still have some phthalo, but instead of black, I'm going to use raw umber. If you don't have this color, it's okay. I love my raw umber typically. It's like the color I go to the most. That and phthalo blue, at least. Okay, so from here, I'm just going to begin to apply what I need. I need to find my one brush. Oh, there it is. So from here, again, what I'm going to look at first is I'm going to just look at shadows. So I'm going to begin to add in my background first. I definitely am not doing the same thing I did the last time. So I have my blue and my brown, and I really truly love this color because it just looks black, but it's not. This is phthalo blue and raw umber, hands down. The best way to make a dark color if you ever need it. So an underpainting is just focusing on the values first that you have. And so with this, what I'm just doing right now is I am going to focus on those values, and you'll see what it looks like in just a minute and how that kind of changes everything up a little bit. So I'm going to still take my raw umber, and I'm going to actually mix a little bit of my burnt sienna in with it now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on coming in and painting the shadow along here. I'm going to also add just a tiny drop of water to my paint just to make it a little bit more fluid. And that's how I also created my background to start off with. So if you weren't sure how to do that yet, just add a little bit, add some water. If your paper is not really meant for water, it will kind of crinkle a little bit. Mine definitely did that, so don't stress out too much if that does happen to you, but just know that that's how you can create those. So I'm going to do that there. Now I'm going to come back to my phthalo and my umber mixture, and I'm going to apply this to all the other places that I see some shadows. So I have that spot down here. And again, you can kind of see how that looks a little bit different there even. And then I have a shadow coming up. Again, I'm working on the side, so forgive me if it's a little confusing. So again, I'm going to add a little bit of water to that mixture for now. And just that, like literally it's a drop when I do work with this. It just allows the paint to move a little bit more than it would have originally. That's all. So this underpainting is just focusing on like those dark areas mainly, and getting those in, and just kind of starting to see like, you know, just your other colors that are going on in your piece. So once again, I'm just going to add a little bit more there, and then a little bit there. This fabric gets a little tricky sometimes. Alright, now I'm not going to definitely add any white to that. I do want to let that dry. I am going to, I'm going to actually wipe off my brush down here so I can kind of save some of that kind of bluish color. Now I'm going to rinse it out, hopefully as best as I can. There might still be a little bit of color in this, but that's going to be okay because you're going to see what I'm going to do. So now I'm going to take and I'm going to make the orange color. And sometimes if I don't pick the right red or if I don't pick the right yellow, I might have to play with this a little bit. And you can see I'm taking a drop of that burnt sienna and I'm going to pick up a little bit of my other color. And now I'm going to come over top of that shadow that I had painted originally. And you can see that actually because of that, my colors are blending all together, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. So now I'm going to, again, kind of wipe off my brush a little bit. And now I'm going to just stick with more of the yellow. And once again, just as I did before, I do like to mix just straight on my canvas because it does work a little bit better. And notice I didn't add any red to this. What's interesting to note is with the orange that it does kind of, I mean, it's obviously orange in color, but I don't want it to be too red either. So I'm actually going to pull now some red from where I had, like where I had red and orange kind of mixing. And I'm going to paint this whole thing. And I know I didn't do my background, and I'm going to learn my lesson again, but I'm actually going to do this first because I want to show you something that I can do. So the reason why I did this part first rather than working on the background is because I wanted to work these colors in and kind of get this completed, because what I can do, and you can see how as a whole this is kind of, it's kind of a little muddy, right? And notice I haven't added any white yet. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some white, I'm going to take a little bit of yellow, and take the tiniest drop of red, mixing that in. And now I'm going to come in with, notice the difference, what white does. So that's why I didn't want to use white at the beginning. I like to wait basically for that until I'm ready, because white will cover basically it's way more opaque than anything else that we use. So we want to try to use it basically at the last when we work with this. So that's why you saw me not working with it originally. I'm going to pick up both. Pick up a little bit more of that shadow color. There we go. And again, with acrylic you have to work quickly. So I'm blending my colors together. If I don't like something, I'm just kind of coming back. And because I still have plenty of paint on my brush, I can just kind of work all those colors in. I don't have to really overmix anything. However, sometimes you might find it like it might be really hard for you to do that. So feel free to mix it a little bit on your palette first. Again, you can see I have like a lot of different spots, and I don't take very long to mix. It's because again, it dries quickly and I want to get working. So I'm going to let now that color dry there. I'll add in the highlight later in a second. So now I'm going to come and I'm going to start working on my background. So now that I'm ready to do this, just like from before, I'm going to kind of start to add that in, but I also now need to, also going to grab a little bit of white. I'm going to change the color because I have a lot of other stuff going on in this. So, We're not super concerned a ton with the background. We do want to try to get it in, but again, you can see what because I have that raw umber and because I really haven't washed up my brush, I do have that yellow still sneaking through there. So I am going to grab a little bit more of my blue. And again, you can see I don't have a lot of paint down. Again, I'm not trying to waste paint with this, so it's always better to run out of paint and put paint down than to find that you are stuck like having so much paint on your canvas, on your palette. So again, I'm going to add now a little bit of white to that color, and you can see really the huge difference between when I add white with that versus when I don't. But I do like to keep that tone down because I definitely don't need it super bright. So I still mix in a little bit of that umber with it. Again, you can see how this is going to work. I am working really quickly so I can show you, but as you work, you're going to find that the first day you're just going to focus on the background. The second day you might want to just kind of do maybe the background, like the fabric part first. And then the third day you might want to focus on the orange. I would not try to do this all in one day because you'll just get very frustrated at how quickly this dries and how you won't be able to spend much time you know, focusing on your values and stuff like that. So again, now that I've painted this, I'm going to work in this part between the two. Come back in to the middle. Work back here now. Again, I'm just using the tiniest bit amount of white along with the my raw umber to achieve that. And I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, so my paint is drying within like 10 seconds of putting it down, basically, if I'm getting that lucky. I'm going to come in really close here, try to blend that out a little bit. So that's drying, so I'm going to rinse my brush out now because I definitely don't want anything else interfering with it. Because the one spot I have left is my highlight on my orange. So I'm going to first focus on that brightest highlight. So I'm going to grab a little bit of white on my brush, and I'm going to focus on where that's at to start off with. So I'm going to put that down, but I'm also now going to grab a little bit of yellow, and I'm going to go right in on top, grab my white again, and now I have too much yellow, so now I'm just going to focus on white. I'm just now dabbing it in, basically, because obviously on an orange what's interesting is it kind of, it's not perfect all the way, so now I'm trying to just grab the smallest tiny bit, way too much red right there. So I was trying to grab the smallest amount of red and I did not get a very tiny amount, so now I'm grabbing a little bit more white, and I'm going to work on adding in this part over here that it had. And again, I'm just dabbing that in. So this is a little excessive right here, so now I'm going to come back, rework that area. So actually I'm going to take that color that I had made, focus on adding a little bit more yellow and red to it, kind of getting the sides of it just buffered out a little bit. You can see how that's going. And I still need to tone this down too, so I'm going to actually come back a little bit more red. Too much red there. Get more yellow now, and I'm just going to work right on top of that. And hopefully so I want that to appear a little bit lighter. Hopefully it's kind of doing that now. You can see it's definitely not as bold as it was at the beginning.